In five, four, three, two, one. Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome to the 4.0 Solutions podcast. I'm Zach Scriven here, your host. And I have Trent Christopher with me, who we're going to bring on in a second. But first, uh, I wanted to share a couple announcements. So we'll dive over to the announcements right now. So this podcast is sponsored by MaintainX. Quick shout out to the sponsor. If you still got clipboards floating around the plant and you already know the pain of missed preventative maintenances, or you're scrambling for parts lists and you've got mystery downtime that nobody can trace, MaintainX fixes that with a mobile first CMMS and asset management platform that lets your frontline teams track, close work orders right from their phone. Think of it like a real-time chat with photo-rich standard operating procedures and IoT-ready dashboards all in one place. More than 10,000 facilities worldwide trust MaintainX to cut unplanned downtime and give leadership clean data they need to boost their availability and hit reliability targets. Um, he- Ready to ditch the paperwork and keep the lines running? Head over to getmaintainx.com to book a free test drive and tell them you came from the 4.0 Solutions podcast. And start turning wrench time into uptime with MaintainX. We've got a couple announcements. Walker is actually coming back from WinCC Developer Days. He's over there with Vaughn and Stephanie, and they did a keynote speech as well as a live mastermind session with the WinCC platform. WinCC 08 is an IIoT platform, so it's awesome to be able to be out there. That was in Prague just this week. Um, in a couple of weeks, we have the Edge Connectivity Workshop. So 4.0 podcast listeners, listen up. If your plant floor still speaks in mystery Modbus and um, legacy PLC protocols, all while your leadership wants like shiny AI dashboards, the Edge Connectivity to UNS Workshop is live on June 17th, 18th, and 19th. This is your shortcut. In 3 hands-on sessions, we will show you how to hook up any asset, clean the data, and stream it straight into a unified namespace for your MES, your business intelligence, or your AI applications, so the data is easily be able to use. Because you are listening to the 4.0 podcast, use the code podcast40 at checkout for 40% off, but only until May 31st. So you've got a couple of days to use that code. Again, that's podcast40 to get 40% off. Hit the link in the description below to claim your seat and turn your mystery data into real-time insight before your competition even knows what hits them. And also next month on June 12th and 13th, mark it down now. We're going to be at the Messi 4.0 Summit. This is in Porto. Picture the world's sharpest manufacturing minds sharing playbooks and strategies, and our very own Walker Reynolds will be breaking down how a unified namespace supercharges critical manufacturing's platform for plant-wide analytics and less downtime. We're also going to be doing some product strategy and go-to-market consulting with critical manufacturing. I'm looking forward to being in Porto. I just posted a video. They have an awesome light rail transit system, so I'm looking forward to see it. So go over to Messi 4.0 Summit, and we'll see you in Portugal. And last but not least, this is the last Prove It Conference 2026. This is the last call for sponsors. So if you want to sponsor the Prove It Conference in 2026, people are already dubbing Prove It as the US Hanover Messi for digital transformation and Industry 4.0, and for good reason. We're going to be at the Regency Hotel in downtown Dallas, February 20th and February 16th through 20th. So head over to proveitconference.com, drop in your email, and you'll be first to know when ticket sales go live. And again, this is the last call for sponsors. Already 80% of the sponsorship packages have been accounted for. So do not miss out and get your brand in front of the largest manufacturing and industry digital transformation conference in the United States. That's all for announcements today. Thank you for listening. I'm going to go ahead and bring on Trent Christopher now.
Hey, Zach, thanks for having me on.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And if you guys are listening into the live chat, drop where you're listening to in the chat, whether you're on YouTube or LinkedIn. We do have a live audience today, so we look forward to hearing any questions or comments that you guys have. But yeah, I'm bringing Trent Christopher on to talk about the future of PLC integration. And but Trent, why don't you quickly introduce yourself and then we'll kind of dive into it.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Zach. I appreciate it. And good intro as well. I think that there was a lot for people to chew on for your intro. So, and I'm excited for 2026 Prove It Conference. That'll be great. So I'm Trent Christopher. I've been working in the industry for about 22 years where I've been doing controls. So I've been focused on everything from the wiring, the controls panel building, the hardware, all the way into engineering, electrical design, software, project management, and really focused on controls. I've spent time as a system integrator, a machine builder, and then working for a very large OEM and a very large electronics manufacturer. And since then, I've started my own business, 40 Hero LLC. And that is primarily because of the things that I have actually run into, the challenges that I've met throughout my entire journey of 22 years, where there's always been a point in time where the customer says, I love what you've made for us. It makes a part for us. It does the process. But at the end of the day, they say, okay, now I want to connect my machine to X. I want my business to be able to see what's happening somewhere else. A maintenance guy that's sitting someplace else, or he is trying to monitor multiple machines, or maybe he's extremely busy and he just needs to know when he needs to pay attention. Or somebody just wants to be able to keep track of their data for compliance reasons for their client. Historical data. So those things, those challenges, we'll talk about some of them coming forward here, but that's the reason that I'm focused now on edge connectivity, data solutions, and I'm real excited to see what happens coming forward for controls and data integration and the new tech that is being applied.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on, Trent. I'm pretty excited about this conversation because we often get a lot of criticism that we focus really high up on the stack. But we really want to get our hands dirty and get down into the edge conversation today. So and that's kind of where you are an expert. But kind of quickly share what your background is with, the 4.0 solutions team. Just if people weren't aware, Trent's going to be leading the Edge Connectivity to UNS Workshop next month. You've applied to be an instructor at IIoT University, and this is like kind of the first workshop that you'll be teaching for the community. How did you find the 4.0 Solutions channel, and how did we get to where we're at today?
So actually, while I was working on an application, I had somebody that mentioned Walker's name to me. They said, hey, check out this channel on YouTube. And I had already had an interest in this concept of let's connect our data, let's connect our assets and our machines. And I knew that every time we ran into a challenge, I talked about this challenge, or I mentioned challenges earlier, I knew that there had to be a way that had to be easier, that had to be more universal, that people could apply it and apply it at scale, instead of what we tend to do or tend to happen is that we would have clients that would ask for data integration, but the people that are actually doing the control side of things didn't understand how to do it. So that was my personal interest was that challenge. I also have a background in just home automation and playing with computers and electronics. So it's a personal interest of mine, but also a professional interest to try to move forward for industry. But that's where I actually found 4.0 Solutions, was that I was like, okay, some of this stuff is starting to make sense. And it looks like someone has figured out how to apply this at a larger scale. And it's I won't say easy. I won't say easy because, but it may be more of a mature practice of how to apply this type of technology and how to build the unified namespace is the terminology, right? But ultimately, I think that regardless of what we call it, unified namespace or not, the goal was try to bring everybody's mindset and understanding into how to apply data integration at the controls level all the way up the entire, I say stack, but hopefully it's not a stack in the future, right? So, but But yeah, so that's how I found 4.0 Solutions. That was about 5 years ago, I think. And I've been in the mentorship and mastermind recently, and it's been great being able to work with you guys and be able to experience all of the knowledge and absorb all the knowledge that you guys are sharing on the website. So and then just being with people is actually probably the most valuable. Some of the conversations we had at Prove It conference were absolutely excellent. So, and with both clients and the team at 4.0 Solutions.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys did, at the mock controls booth was pretty freaking awesome. And then you
Yeah.
also were recently at Automate.
Yep. Yeah, it was. So, our friend and member of 4.0 Solutions mastermind, Brian Pryby, he's at Mock Controls, and he needed a little bit of help, and I was looking for a way to participate. To be able to help out and show kind of the things I could do and just basically participate and have fun with it. And I went and helped him with some of that integration effort, the development effort. And because of that, we actually had Phoenix contact a couple of booths down, and they kind of liked what we were doing. And they were like, okay, we have an open spot for Automate. So they invited us to go to Automate inside of their booth and be able to show what we were doing, but leveraging obviously, the Phoenix Contact brand. That's really kind of what they were trying to get at. But it was a really good experience as well too. We can talk more about that if you like.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really awesome. I do want to dive into the meat of today's topics, with edge integration and the problems around that. You talked about like the disconnect between the people that are asking for the data and then the controls engineers, the ones that are actually implementing it.
Mm-hmm.
Being a full stack architect, we kind of take that for granted, being able to be cross discipline. But before we get into that, I wanted to ask. No, I totally spaced out. You were in the UNS 3-day workshop, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what I was going to ask is what you guys. Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we didn't mention is like when someone signs up for the Edge workshop, they're going to get a recording of the UNS 3-day workshop, which I was like, oh yeah, that's freaking awesome. So I don't know. I found that pretty valuable, but so this is going to be more focused on. I mean, are you going to be showing us? My question was like, are you going to be showing us what you built, kind of, or is there some overlap between the lesson and what you guys built for your demo, or?
There might be a little bit of overlap, but we were trying to leverage a platform known as United Manufacturing Hub, UMH, and we were presenting our solution there using that tool. For the workshop, actually, we're going to be leveraging some tools that maybe people aren't familiar with, but ultimately what we need to do is edge connectivity. So edge connectivity, and we got to show the challenges of working with legacy, but also what it might look like if we have some level of new tech to be able to integrate it to a UNS. So I had to look for ways that we could represent the factory floor as it is today, not just what it will be in the future, not just what the dream is, but also where we currently are, because that's actually one of the first things that I notice really is that we talk about UNS and integration and data, but one of the first things from my perspective as a controls engineer was, okay, but I was left a little bit like, how do I do it from my controller, my PLC? How do I build controls in a machine, a piece of equipment that is ready to be able to actually integrate to the UNS? So
Why haven't we always done that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think one of them is one of the challenges is that most equipment builders aren't focused on the data integration. So it's more specifically a request that comes from the clients. But one of the problems is the client, the business operator or the people, the end users, is that they don't fully understand the equipment side of things. They might understand it well enough to maintain it, well enough to run it, but they don't always understand how to integrate it. And another challenge too is that the equipment that was built, the control system, while it may have technology to connect, it might have an Ethernet port, but the people that were programming it, did they think about someone that needs to get in there and actually be able to leverage the data that's within? In these PLCs, we can have thousands of tags. I mean, maybe even millions, depending on how big this machine is. We can have, any number of tags, but is it organized in a way that is it semantic? Does it make sense to you, or does it make sense to the programmer? More than likely, it's going to make sense to the programmer. So that's one of the big challenges there, is that, was it in the forethought, or is it just an afterthought to do data integration? I think that we need to start putting it at the forefront of when we're designing a system, when we're designing a machine. It's not all about the process. It's not all about the equipment, the hardware, the controls. It is also about data integration and how can we make that better.
So are you seeing, that's excellent. So I mean, are you seeing more of the manufacturer specifying requirement? Like, like
Yeah.
if they're trying to take unlike assets and make them like, are the manufacturers specifying to the hardware vendors and the equipment builders, these are the way that I want to consume the data? Or are you seeing it the other way, where like maybe the OEM is thinking more about doing that semantic organizing and data modeling on the equipment, and then educating the manufacturers that they sell to, hey, these are the new features that we have on our equipment that are just standard out of the box? Or are you seeing more vendors like PLC Next and Phoenix Contact educating the OEMs that they sell to?
So I think it's coming from a lot of different angles, and it really depends on the maturity of the individual that you really start to work with, or the company is trying to understand where they're at and what their focus is. But clients tend to be the first one that requests they want data, and most of industry, most of our manufacturing is still legacy equipment, which the data side of things was just hadn't been thought about. So that big challenge of how do I integrate legacy, machines, that it wasn't even a thought at all, is a big challenge. And that's one thing that we're going to try to cover in the workshop. But then when we start looking to what we have now, when we start to build equipment now, we're definitely seeing some, machine builders that what they're doing is they're providing like a standardized, data structures, and maybe a standardized control platform that has technology built into it that enables the connectivity that we need. But I don't think it's as common as it needs to be, for sure. We need to start having people think about that, just as much as they think about what controller they want to use or what controls platform. They really should be thinking about how it enables data integration and how it makes it easy as well. Right.
They should be thinking about what containers they're going to run on their equipment.
That's definitely something that we need to make sure that we talk about, for sure. I don't want to get in too deep into that, because I do actually want to kind of lead into, what I saw at Automate, and what I think future is going to look like for PLCs and controls. It's an exciting time for sure. So let's talk about that maybe a little bit later. But let's talk about the next challenge that when you were asking me the question just a minute ago about, are we seeing more forethought into data integration from, and who are we seeing it from? I think that a lot of times we're seeing the technology coming from people like Phoenix Contact, or from Omron, or from these electronics manufacturers that are innovating their technology. I think we're seeing the technology, but I don't know that everybody fully understands, to what degree, like what are the features and functions that we need to have that really make this easy, that make it scalable too. That's really a big problem, is scalability. So we're seeing it from them. They're promoting it, obviously. But how to do it, I think, is a big challenge. Then that's something that we'll talk about in the Edge workshop, and how we can leverage new technology, even if if it's included or if it's not included. We're going to be working on legacy protocols like Modbus TCP. We're going to be working on things like OPC-UA. I understand that OPC-UA, has sometimes a bad name, but OPC-UA can really give us a lot of features that make it easy for us to integrate our edge equipment if it's built in. Most legacy controllers and devices don't have OPC-UA, so
Siemens has got OPC-UA server on board, and
sure.
a lot of the, I mean, the PLC Next does as well.
Yeah, Yeah. And I actually see a lot of value in OPC UA. And I don't see it as something you should build your data architecture on top of,
True.
but I do see a lot of value at the edge. So when we look at things like when I talk
Well,
about
it would make sense for using it for the Edge workshop, but
bingo, exactly.
so what are we going to be doing with it?
Well, so if we just maybe look at
Or
the
why do you like OPC UA at the Edge?
Sure. Okay. Let's talk about what the challenges that we have before we have OPC UA.
Yeah.
You know, in a controller, in a controls platform, you have a list of tags. You have to understand what they are, or memory addresses. Modbus TCP or Modbus, it just uses a number that represents a data register. A data register can represent any possibility of whether it's a Boolean, a true or false, or whether it be an integer or a real, or it could even be a string. It could be like a text word, right? But you know, understanding that data map is a challenge for people. And then if someone customized it, the controller, the machine, the controls engineer, any of that, they've created their own custom map. So now where do you get it from? How do you know what data, what number represents what? You have to go get that somewhere. Where am I supposed to go get it from? Well, first, hopefully you can find the documentation. If you can't find
a L5S export or what's the Allen Bradley equivalent? You can
like L5X, L5X. So if you have a table of all the registers,
or you just connect with OPC UA and you browse.
Or that's the big thing, right? Is that it would be nice if I could just point it to that IP address or that device with a name, connect to it, and it just tells me everything it has. In Modbus TCP, you can't do that. And most controllers, you can't do that. You can to some degree for some, but showing the structure though too. Like there can be tags just like in a unified namespace where you have a hierarchy. You know, we've got enterprise site area line cell. And inside a controller, you can build a hierarchy kind of similarly. Like you have a motor and then you have your speed and your torque, and you know, you have all these parameters that can go inside of a structure. How do you know what that structure looks like? Well, OPC UA helps us with that. It presents the structure, the naming, and it gives us the data type, and it gives us potential metadata that comes along with it. And all we have to do is point to it, connect to it, and now we have the data, assuming we can get the security stuff.
Quick question. Lucas, I see your question. We'll get to that in a second. Thank you. But
sure.
When you're saying you're doing OPC UA gives you the ability to do like semantic hierarchy. Are you just talking about data modeling? Like I have an asset and then it has these attributes and there's some sort of object modeling capabilities on the PLC, or is it also able to put it into a enterprise site, like a multi-layer? Like, are you actually, or would those be better as attributes on those?
They'd probably be better as attributes. So one of the challenges with like a controls platform is that you can go really deep if you wanted to,
but you don't want to go that deep.
You don't want to. It gets really difficult to program. That's another reason if we go backwards a little bit, that when people name tags or variables inside of a program, they tend to name them in a way that they understand them. And they like to be short and concise because they don't want to type a bunch of letters to be able to program. They need to do it fast and efficient. So OPC UA, you absolutely can go many levels, but I think that it'd probably be better to try to stay at maybe 3 levels.
Can you put folders, or it's only as many levels as you go, as many objects as you nest?
So you can go folders, right? You're not going to
do that on Kepware as well too, right?
Yeah. You can't, but it's going to be rigid. So like when you write a controller program, whoever created that structure, it's pretty static until you go in there and modify the PLC program. It's not going to be something that you are going to be able to change and adapt. And this really moves into some of the things that I really look forward to in the future. I'm hoping that we can get more controllers that have the ability to be able to change these things without having to change the PLC program. And I know that that's going to be a challenge, but that's what we need. That's what we need. So
So like being able to on the fly change data mapping on a PLC without having to re-download the program to it.
yeah, that's what we need. So
Why
okay,
why
so
or do online change? Why don't we have that capability?
yeah, so one of the challenges, and I know I keep saying that.
I'm sorry I'm grilling you, but I'm really
No,
interested in knowing
no.
what.
Yeah. So okay. So a controller needs to run efficiently. Efficiently, it is a embedded controller, effectively
That's
in
why.
most
Okay,
cases,
so
right?
it's
So it needs to be
running very
compiled.
close to the kernel.
It likely has to be compiled, and when you are building applications like that, it's hard to revise them on the fly, so to speak. But what we can do is that they will have a table of data that's available within that program. You may not want to have that entire amount of data exposed over OPC because it may be, like I said, thousands or millions of tags that may not be relevant to everything you're trying to collect with your data and bring into your unified namespace. Yes, I know all data matters, and in the future, we'll be able to take all data. But when you have a million data points in a PLC, it's not reasonable. So we have to find some level of reason right now, right now. So, but coming back to that, um, coming back to that, being able to make a change on the fly, if I didn't map it to OPCUA by just checking a box or something, okay, it's quite literally usually you just check a box. But if I didn't map it, how do I change it on the controller? The typically you have to go in, change the configuration in the engineering environment that you programmed that device in. So now you are changing the application. So now you have to re-download back to the controller. So that
Right.
that requirement needs to change. And
Because all that, even if you have a like PLCs are starting to have two processors, one for running the PLC and one for running like asynchronous workloads, like containers or whatever. Like I know the Opta 22 Groove Epic has it. I think the PLC
yeah,
Next has it in there.
yeah,
So that would work, but you still need to bridge that gap from the PLC processor that's running the
mhm,
actual logic of your PLC program, because
yeah,
that's the one you need to compile and download and
yes,
to change the data mapping.
yeah, yeah, precisely. So what we're seeing in controllers now that are coming out, and maybe they've had this for years, but there's a separation between the data integration side or apps side, like maybe higher level languages, and then there's the control side. And that control side is going to be focused on the equipment, the control, the process, high speed, deterministic control, knowing that you are always going to execute an operation in a timely manner, consistent, right? That's needed. We have to have that portion of it. But when you need to make a change, or if you are writing a higher level language, like maybe it's Python, or you're doing C++, or you're doing something else on the side, or there's another application. Let's say you're not even writing code. You're just literally running a web browser, a web application that you need to access. That web application could be an HMI, or it could be configuration, but that runs separately. It's likely on two separate resources within that controller. So we need to have the ability to be able to go into a user interface that doesn't affect the control side and be able to change the data that is mapped on OPCUA, or even better, publishes to a UNS via MQTT. So that's really where I think would be the ultimate, well, maybe not the dream, but that is possible today. It's possible, but we don't quite have it there yet. Is that we want to be able to take a PLC and a piece of equipment and just point it to our UNS, point it to our infrastructure, and it automatically start publishing important information and automatically consuming information from our UNS.
That's actually a good segue for what I mean. I totally agree with what you just said. I mean, and the people who, by the way, don't understand what you just said about running that synchronous workload, the code, are the same people who ask why can't I run a traffic intersection on a Raspberry Pi, right?
Right.
But so segue to Lucas's question, what skill sets should control or automation engineers develop to stay ahead of the curve? What hard skills will be critical in the next 2 to 5 years? Uh, I'll should do, a quick, rattle off a few. Like, obviously, this is coming straight from our mentorship program, but you should be learning SQL. You should be learning Python. You should be learning an IIoT platform. Think of an IIoT platform as like your Swiss Army knife for building IIoT applications, a platform for solving problems. Ignition is a very common one, but there's also many others like frameworks and WinCCOA. WinCCOA is an incredibly robust platform. I would recommend going to training if you're going to learn WinCCOA. Or go, like if you want to just get started, go to Inductive University and start taking some of their free online courses. But yeah, definitely learn a platform. The three that you should learn: IIoT platform, structured query language, SQL, and like a software development language like Python.
Yeah.
What do you think, Trent?
Yeah, I think those are all really good.
What would you add? Yeah.
Yeah, I would add data infrastructure. So there are some things there that you definitely have to understand about data infrastructure, and that what I mean by that is you need to run MQTT brokers, right? In this application, what we're talking about UNS, we always talk about using MQTT. So to understand how to use MQTT and how to use a broker and how it works, the publish and subscribe type mechanisms, that's really important. And to be able to do that, there's lots of tools out there that are free, absolutely free, that you can either create an application in yourself or at least try it for a couple hours, like Ignition or TATSoft frameworks. You can take those, download and run for 2 hours.
Soon, Litmus, you'll be able to do that. Litmus Developer Edition.
That's what I'm hearing. So the skills I would say is that, you do need to learn SQL. And if I back up just a little bit, you'll notice that there is a common denominator across some of the things that we talk about. And it's about bringing everything into a common language or a common technology or something that's open and commonly used in not just industry for manufacturing, but also industry for the IT. Okay. So IT.
Being able to run containerized applications.
Yes, exactly. You should learn Docker. You should learn containers. It doesn't have to be Docker, but Docker is the most commonly used one, at least talked about one. Okay. So it's commonly supported. I would definitely recommend start working on Docker. I would start working on SQL and databases. I would definitely start with, Python is a good one, but just really those types of languages, whether it be JavaScript or Python or C#, I would try to learn some of those for sure. Data infrastructure and a little bit of networking would be a good idea. Just understanding how networking works.
Networking is a pain in the ass.
Yeah,
I would recommend avoiding that and just having someone else do that.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a real big pain in the ass. I totally agree with that. But you should probably understand a little bit of how it works, just at least to some degree, so that when you understand, when a challenge arises, because that's what's going to happen. You're looking to overcome challenges, and learning is exactly that. You overcome a challenge. So
I would also add soft skills. I mean, you specifically mentioned hard skills, Lucas, but what soft skills do you need? I mean, because honestly, just if we're talking about taking a step back and just looking at digital transformation and the space of the fourth industrial revolution, this era, this time period that we're in, these leadership skills, being able to overcome political challenges, investing in yourself. We say it all the time. Your digital transformation effort, it starts with education, educating yourself to learn to go how to go from crawling to walking to running. Um, I mean, I had a really nice segue plan there. Click the link in the description below for 40% off for join the Edge Workshop. I don't know. No, invest in yourself. I started investing in myself. It's funny, like I didn't learn programming until I was in college. I had a need to solve a problem, which was doing my aerospace engineering homework. I was originally going to Cal Poly Pomona for aerospace engineering. So I had to learn how to do programming essentially in creating macros in Excel worksheets. And then I finally learned Python and SQL and Ignition, and I met Walker on this really large oil and gas project. So that's kind of where we came up with the building blocks for those skills. But like I would definitely, if you're wanting to take it to the next level, look at our mastermind program. We teach some of those soft skills on around leadership and how to effectively overcome change within within your manufacturing environment, or like if you're a system integrator, how to sell digital transformation internally or externally. That's what we do in our mastermind program. um which you're a part of. So um
So I would mention some other soft skills that you want to probably work on or have strong capability is learn to listen and be able to also challenge. So listening to people and picking out their problems when they say, man, I hate it when it really, that machine always goes down and it, always does this weird quirk thing, right? It may not mean a lot, to most people, but you hear that and you're like, well, wait, that's causing them pain, right? Even if it's a small amount of pain, they're frustrated by it. So that's an opportunity to be able to try to make change somewhere and be able to show somebody the value of potentially using data and integration and automation.
Winning the results war.
Yeah, yeah,
And if
exactly.
I'll speak for Walker. Well, I don't speak for him, but like if Walker were here, in my head, he's saying, um, get on the freaking plant floor. Go spend some time on the plant floor. Work in a manufacturing environment. If you're a student in college and you've learned all of these hard skills and soft skills, but you haven't worked on the plant floor, you need to go work on a plant floor for 2 years and learn the problems of manufacturers by spending time on the plant floor.
And be open-minded about it. Like, don't go there and say, well, I'm above this. Like, don't have that mindset, because I've had too many people that like they come in as an engineer, new
And
engineer.
they don't know what the fuck they're talking about.
Exactly. They're like, I can write a Python script for days that'll do whatever XYZ, but they come down to the plant floor, the manufacturing floor, and they have no clue how to turn a bolt. Like to build a car, to just do this process, to understand the fact that you do one thing, it causes downstream change. So just understanding those things and how things work is really important. I think that understanding the real challenges, like when things don't go the way that you idealized, machines going down, have no clue why, that kind of stuff. And then I was thinking about another tool that we're actually going to be using in the workshop. And when he was asking about
It's not K3S.
no, it's not K3S. Sorry guys, it'll be Docker though. We'll use Docker.
Okay.
So what we are going to use and skills to learn is, one thing is understand the difference between a database and a historian. Might be a good idea. But a historian like Timebase, we're going to use Timebase. And if you've been paying attention to what Timebase has been doing at all, if you've seen what they just released, they actually released a connector to your favorite LLM, your Chat GPT, whatever it is you want to connect. Now you can take your data from your edge into a historian and then connect Chat GPT to it and ask it questions about the data that is within that historian. So you need to learn the importance of that and how to do that. So, and that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about in the Edge workshop, is just how do we get that data? How do we contextualize the data and make sure it's organized, right? And put it into a historian so that we can leverage it like this, doing exactly that.
Awesome. We'll jump to Lamar's question, but again, I want to do a quick shout out for the sponsor today, MaintainX. I mean, without them, we wouldn't be able to produce this content. So if you guys are looking for a CMMS, go look at MaintainX. Go to getmaintainx.com and tell them 4.0 Solutions sent you. And then also, again, the Edge integration into Unified Namespace Workshop that's going to be led by Trent Christopher next month in June. The dates are June 17th, 18th, and 19th, a 3-day workshop. If you are a 4.0 listener, if you're listening to the 4.0 podcast, which if you're hearing this, I don't know how you wouldn't be, go use the code podcast40 for 40% off, but only until May 31st. And that link is in the description below. I just wanted to say that again for anyone who's just joined. Thank you for joining. Let's jump over to Lamar's question. Currently working in an organization trapped in the third industrial revolution. We do not have people on the floor who know how to collect data from it. This is literally the problem that he said at the beginning of How do we start in my small area of the business?
So first thing is that you can only control so much of your space. So you can ask people, right, to help you out, to give you resources, give me money, give me a computer. You're going to go to different people to be able to ask for those things. And you're going to be met with resistance probably. You might have somebody that's really open-minded to be able to give you the tools you need, but try to work within the space that you have control over, and try to see if you can do some of it. You might have to work a little bit extra to do it on the side, maybe, but you can get started on learning these skills. And I promise you that just by, if you work a little bit extra to learn the skills, apply the skills, and show somebody what you're able to do, it's gonna move you places. You're gonna go somewhere. You're gonna show people, what you're capable of, and if nothing else, you'll make people think of you differently.
Yeah,
So
Lamar, what is your area of the plant? What is your small area? He said he added on, I want to use my small area in the plant as a proof of concept of what could be, showing the art of the possible. Our corporate is not pursuing digital transformation. So yeah, Lamar, what is your area of the plant? Uh, and
yeah,
then
so I think that.
like where you say, all right, start educating yourself,
Mhm.
build out. You may have to work extra to get this proof of concept off the ground. Maybe using free tools in your spare time. What would you use?
I think Node-RED is a really low barrier to entry. So I think that, if you can do it with Node-RED, there are some technical limitations and challenges that come along with it, but you can do a lot with this tool. It's free. You can install it on almost anything. You have a PC, a Raspberry Pi, or whatever sitting around, you can install this on it. And then it has connectors to devices. So when we talk about Modbus TCP, you can use Node-RED to get Modbus TCP data and be
On
able
what hardware would you put it on?
to. What hardware would I choose to put it on?
Yeah,
Um,
let's say you don't have something that you could
if you
use
need to
it
buy
on already.
something, yeah. So I would send it two directions. The first one, if you actually want to buy something that is industrialized and ready to go, and you're going to be able to use it, it's robust. I would go to an industrial PC manufacturer. One of my choices really is OnLogic. They're really good. Phoenix Contact actually was just showing me their little compact unit. Actually, they're right beside each other right here on my panel. I've got their little
On
IPC.
Logic.
Yeah, this is
Or,
OnLogic here, and then this one here is Phoenix Contact. So form factor is clearly a lot smaller for Phoenix. Similar horsepower, similar resources. Okay, but
what's
this,
the Phoenix contact part number?
I think it's like
Or
a
what is
VLB or VL3, something like that.
So, but it's their
It's a
edge
PC.
gateway solution, not the PLC.
It's not the PLC. No, it's not the PLC. But you can run. So this right here is a Phoenix Contact PLC Next right here. You can run Node-RED on that if you want to. So that's a nice, industrialized piece of hardware that you can run apps on it like Node-RED if you like, and it can be a PLC, a controller. So you get what I talked about earlier, where we need to have the ability to have control application and be able to run other applications like Node-RED or Python or a web dashboard or whatever. You can do that on that. You can do that on that. But let's say you don't have the money to spend on something like this or this or this. Um, you can go on eBay and you can buy a little mini PC.
Just run it on that. Yeah.
I mean, you can get one of these for like under $100. It's just a little Dell mini computer right off eBay. So buy one of those things. You might even just buy it yourself. I mean, for $100, I'm not saying $100 isn't a lot of money to some people, but for $100, you could buy it and you can use it for a lot of different things.
Yaki, I love that we're still getting this question, by the way,
Yeah.
because if we keep getting this question, then 4.0 solutions will still, have a purpose. But UNS stands for Unified Namespace. It's the current, and what is the unified namespace? It's the current state of your business, all the events, data, and information contextualized and semantically organized, normalized. It's the single source of truth for your current state. for the entire organization. It's the hub through which all the smart things in your business communicate, and it's the foundation of your Industry 4.0 architecture.
And let's talk
So
about
I
what
don't know.
it is.
And yeah, what is it?
What is it? It's not a single device that you purchase. It's not a single product that you purchase. It's more of a methodology and an architecture than it is buying a product. It's about bringing things and connecting them on common technology and a common infrastructure so that you can share and connect everything all together so that they can all
It's
function.
and it's also not the single source of truth for historical state.
Correct. Well, so let's maybe we need to clarify a little bit. So UNS can still reside within a database. You can still have that semantic, hierarchy that's built out in a database. So you can still have lots of that. It's just not your real state. It's your historical or it's your transactional data that still has the organization to it. It's just not your real time, right? So that way, when you're looking at all of your tree of your UNS, you see all of this data, right? It's all your real-time data passing through your MQTT broker. You can find that same data related to your database as well. If you're storing it differently,
The way I would describe it is you would use the topic, from your unified namespace as the unique identifier for records in a database. If that's kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. And we might have to be careful. I actually want to bring up a challenge that we ran into.
Because the database itself wouldn't be report by exception or edge driven, right?
Correct.
A database is a poll response. So that's where people get confused is they're like, oh, or sometimes they also like say, well, where is the data stored? If it's in a broker, right? It's just like on, it's that topic that's, running on whatever hardware, depending on whatever broker you're using. It's just kind of stored in memory right there for any subscriber to be able to access that last known value.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, having the term, unified namespace, I think is pretty clear on what it, what the words mean. Right. But the interpretation can be different for sure. And the way that I really see it is that it's a methodology and being able to bring data sources, could be multiple data sources. It doesn't have to be real-time data. It can be historical data in a way that you can blend them together so that you can leverage them, right? In multiple use cases. So it can be real-time. The idea is you want to have real-time data. You're streaming that, but you also need historical data. So your UNS is captured somewhere else as well, right?
Yeah. What I'd say, and like platforms like Flow and others that have historical data, the unified namespace becomes the place of which you can access the historical data endpoint. Okay. So whether you want to query what the model is of that data or you want to actually query the raw data, you could get that URL endpoint. They automatically publish that to the UNS. We saw that at Prove It.
It's the link. It's the link that brings all of it together, right? So the relationship and
because the link to that historical data is a piece of information that belongs in the UNS.
Yes, agreed.
It's all data, right?
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. It points to a storage location, right? You would have that information in your UNS so that you know where to go retrieve your historical data or your event data, right? So everything has the ability to use a unified namespace to be able to go get data even from other sources. So, but yeah.
Quick question.
Sure.
What is your preferred BI solution and how do you think about building value from the data? I mean, I like Flow Software and I like that they produce the free historian time base. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So
if you're looking for a process historian, Canary, they make a great historian. So it depends on what you're trying to do. But what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's kind of where I would head to. Is that there's collecting the data, then there's presenting the data, and there's also analyzing, right? So the visualize and analyze, steps or stages that you can look at. So for collecting the data, I've looked at Canary. I like Canary. You can also collect it in Timebase. You can collect it into many different, storage mechanisms, but always look for something that has the ability to be able to consume, from a unified namespace. You put like a Microsoft SQL database in place, you still need middleware to be able to get that data into the database somehow or to transact. So look for that. But
Yeah.
but then you move to analytics. So you want to start like producing some information from data. I think that Flow software makes that really easy to be able to build a unified namespace with all of your data and create some KPIs very fast. So I think that that's a really good solution for that, because you can use Power BI if you like, but you're going to have to build all your own analytics yourself. You're going to have to do all your own calculations. So
Yeah. I mean, well, I would just say, like, to echo what you said is, you use the right data infrastructure so your consumers can use whatever tool they want.
and that's another response that I also provide people, is that they say, well, which one do I use? And like, why do you have to pick one? If they're on a common technology, why do you have to choose one? You can, Fred can use
Well,
Power BI while, Bob is using Excel. I don't
I
care.
mean, you can use as many as you can afford the monthly subscription bill.
There you go.
Let's dive back into the future. Let's close it out with, like, going back into the future of PLC or anything else that we want to talk about. Audience,
Yeah.
if you have any other questions, we'll get to them. But the future of PLC program. I mean, I think PLC programming environments should have a built-in data type that supports formatted and validated JSON. So if you could have, instead of just putting that into a string tag on a PLC, imagine if you could just have like JSON objects, and also the ability to publish natively to, like MQTT or, with SparkPlug-B. That would be cool. I don't know, being able to update the data mapping without having to re-download the program. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we need to start have more technology, like you've mentioned, where you can, ideally, in my eyes, we should be able to have a direct connection to an MQTT broker, and we should be able to choose whether we want SparkPlug-B or we want JSON, or how we want it to be presented, the payload to be presented. And you can do all of that with PLCs today. You can, but it needs to be in a way that we don't have to be a PLC programmer to implement and make changes to in the future. Because one of the key things about learning and data is that you're going to learn things, and what we want today is a function of what we know today, right? So we're going to actually learn things, and we're going to want different things. So therefore, we're going to want to go back and make some revisions. So
I mean, you're going to be writing PLC programming. You're going to be writing PLC programs using natural language. I mean, it's going to come to the point. I mean, I started in water, wastewater. You know how easy it's going to be to just literally take the controls description for an operation of, like, I mean, it's going to get complicated, and then you're going to also, you're definitely going to want an engineer to review the code that's generated.
Mhm.
But you're going to just be feeding the controls description into an LLM platform that's going to be generating your code, whether it's ladder logic or structured text. I mean, some of the controls, and then using best practices, like, for whatever industry it's in. Like I said, water, wastewater would be a really easy one to tackle. That's where I learned how to do PLC programming when I was like 18. And I learned more in 6 months working every day at that water treatment plant and, production facility than I did in 2 years of college. But
Yeah. So we talked about specific tools and capabilities that we might need, at the controller, but more generally speaking, I think that when I was at the Automate show, see the PLC Next, so Phoenix Context, their PLC Next, they also have a virtual version of it. So the virtual version of it runs in a Docker container or runs in a Podman container. So while I know we've had soft PLC for a long time,
can it
I
do
don't know.
remote IO?
Oh yeah, remote IO. It doesn't, obviously you don't have the hardware to be able to like add to a rack, but yeah, it's all remote IO, and it's high speed deterministic. So you still get the high speed control component inside of a Docker container that can run on this, but I can also install whatever apps I want to alongside it in Docker. So I can use Portainer, for example, to manage all of my Docker containers that are running on this, including my controls application, my PLC code. So that's things that I think that we're headed towards. Then the next thing that I think that we're also going to be headed towards is that I'm seeing, like Siemens, for example, and I also have seen a couple instances of other smaller third parties that are building ChatGPT to help program PLCs. So I think eventually we're going to get it to the point where we can not just use ChatGPT for Python programming, for example, to speed up our process, but also for PLC programming. So
I think it is interesting that one of the skill sets we mentioned that you should learn to stay ahead of the curve wasn't PLC programming.
Oh, you're right. I don't think you should. I think you
I
need to
agree.
know.
That was
I think
intentional.
yeah, I think you need to know PLC programming. Don't get me wrong, but I think that where we're headed is that
Commoditized, or you're not even going to be writing it yourself. You're going to be
reviewing it.
generating it with
Yeah,
LLMs.
I think in all honesty, what's going to happen is there's going to
Sounds
be
fucking
capabilities.
crazy. Dude,
There's going to be capabilities.
there's going to be an engineer who like writes a LLM piece of PLC programming code, and then like, dude, I mean, they're gonna break down a line and cause a fire or something.
Well,
I mean, when I was first learning, I fucked up one time, and I was learning, and I downloaded a program that had a water well, a motor that was in a running state. I had saved the program when it was all, and then obviously I didn't have proper first scan to set everything into a default state. So when I downloaded the program to the PLC, it was an Allen Bradley Micrologix 1100. You'll never forget the first PLC you program on. It just fucking starts up a 300 horsepower motor. I like nearly shit myself. Like I jumped like 3 feet in the air. It was crazy.
Yeah, that's one of the downfalls, that it's both a pro and a con that, Rockwell likes to include all the memory with their application. So when you download it, everything's the current state. That's great. I kept all my memory. However, you got problems like that. So, but at the end of the day, if you got somebody that's doing, Chat GPT and they're developing code and it does something wrong and it doesn't work properly, I can go into any number of PLCs and just turn on one bit and it totally foobar the whole machine and cause robots to run into each other. Okay. So no matter what, there's going to have to be some sense involved. But when you have ChatGPT, or let's say an AI algorithm of some sort that can develop these things for us, they're probably going to be more thorough at checking those things. Once they understand how to program, right? They're going to be a little bit more thorough. I know when I develop Python code, it's a lot more thought through, first pass, than it is when I'm just doing a rough script, right? So,
yeah, I mean, ladder logic was a great language to learn on, but I think, especially with generative technology, maybe more structured text. We'll see more structured text programs, but
we'll be
man,
moving.
I mean, this has been a great conversation. I just want to put it out to the audience. If you're still listening, thank you. I appreciate you guys being here. We're happy to answer any questions. Rich Hamill said, great Q&A. Thank you, Rich. Yeah, I mean, like, how do you want to close this out? Like, what are your last thoughts? And
my last thoughts are, just one of the big challenges of where we're at right now is that we're still here because people aren't challenging things enough. They aren't trying to think differently. So I really think that you just need to be open-minded and try to challenge why we do things the way we do them. When we have learned other ways in our other daily lives to do things, why can't we bring some of that thought into manufacturing? Because that's really our primary focus here is manufacturing. So just be open-minded and give it try. Just try. And I think that, we can sit here and talk about it all day long. We can read about it all day long. We can watch YouTube videos all day long, but I can't learn to ride a bicycle by reading about it. So I think you really have to hop on that bicycle. So I say, give it a shot, try it out. You really just have to get started and do something, and then you'll start to learn and things will start to move in the right direction.
that's awesome. And yeah, you definitely need to get started, and you need to have it installed working in your plant. And that's what made me think of the 30-day it works in your plant guarantee. So if you join the PLC and Edge integration workshop next month with Trent Christopher, I mean, you use the code podcast 40 to get 40% off at checkout. But if you join the every day, you join the sessions, it's going to be 3 days, 2 to 4 hours per session. So it's a hands-on, and we're going to be providing you the resources to get started. There's a 30-day guarantee that like what we build will work in your plant, and you can go show it to your boss. And so we're like kind of guaranteeing an outcome for you. So like definitely check out that workshop. The link will be in the description below. Again, I'm Zach Scriven with 4.0 Solutions, the host with the second most the 4.0 Solutions podcast.
Yeah.
Trent, thank you for being on today.
Thanks a lot, Zach. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope we can have more of them.
Thank you. Yeah, and leave a like on this video if you're watching on YouTube, or leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform, whether that's Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review and share it with a friend. Appreciate you guys being here, and we'll see you guys.